Roll Tide, everyone, and welcome to Tide TV This Week, brought to you by Thompson Tractor. I'm Roger Hoover, joined by Kira Goldstein. And Kira, 10 games now in the books for Alabama football.
And all of them wins. We love to see it. On Saturday, Alabama traveled to Fayetteville to wrap up the 10-game SEC regular season against the Arkansas Razorbacks.
Alabama dominated Arkansas in all three phases of the game. The Crimson Tide gained 443 total yards of offense as they held the Razorbacks to just 188. The Alabama defense totaled a season-high 8 sacks and forced 4 turnovers, including 3 fumbles and an interception. On special teams, Will Reichard nailed his only field goal attempt from 45 yards out, and then Devontae Smith put on a show. He returned a punt 84 yards for a touchdown. That may be the play of the year.
I agree entirely. After both teams swapped field goals, the Crimson Tide scored 49 unanswered points to end the regular season with a resounding 52-3 victory over the Razorbacks. The win extends Alabama's record for the most consecutive 10-win seasons in Southeastern Conference history to 13. The win also makes Alabama the only team in SEC history to win 10 conference games in a season.
Very impressive, and Mac Jones had a very efficient performance, completing 24 of 29 passes for 208 yards. Freshman Jace McClellan led the Tide in rushing with 95 yards and just 6 carries, including an 80-yard touchdown run. Brian Robinson Jr. ended the day with 54 yards, and he also had 3 scores.
Najee Harris had a couple of rushing touchdowns to go with 47 yards. Najee's 2 scores make it 22 on the year and 42 in his career, tying him with Heisman Trophy winners Derrick Henry and Mark Ingram for Alabama's all-time career rushing touchdown record.
And congratulations to Alex Leatherwood and Devontae Smith. Alex was named the SEC Offensive Lineman of the Week, and then Devontae was awarded the SEC Special Teams Player of the Week for that punt return.
It's championship weekend, and that means we're only a few days away from knowing the final 4 teams in this year's college football playoff.
And the College Football Playoff Committee released their next-to-last ranking of the season on Tuesday. And yes, the Crimson Tide still number 1.
The top 5 remain the same this week, with Alabama, Notre Dame, Clemson, and Ohio State making the top 4. Texas A&M is the next team at 5, but there was a change at 6 this week with Florida's loss to LSU. Florida and Iowa State flipped spots as the Cyclones are now 6th, with the Gators dropping to 7th. Georgia also moved up a spot to 8th.
Final college football playoff rankings will be released next Sunday at 11 a.m. Central Time on ESPN.
Wednesday was the early signing period for college football, and just like the college football playoff rankings, the Tide is number 1.
Coach Saban and the Crimson Tide signed the nation's number 1 class for the early signing period. Alabama signed a total of 24 student athletes from 11 different states to its 2021 recruiting class. The Tide side, 5 linebackers, 4 defensive backs, defensive linemen, offensive linemen, and wide receivers. Also, 1 quarterback, a tight end, and an athlete.
Of the 24 signees, 6 were 5-stars, 23 of the 24 are listed as a 4-star prospect in at least one of the recruiting ranking services. 19 players were ranked in ESPN's 300 and 13 were listed in the Rivals 100.
We identified the needs that we had in this class early on. I think we, got some really good players at each one of those positions. And, we're really pleased to have this group of players become a part of our program and a part of our team. So we're excited about the future. We're excited about helping them develop personally, academically, and athletically so that they can have more success in life because they were involved in the program here.
Number 1 in the college football playoff rankings, number 1 in recruiting. Roll Tide, and welcome to the 24 newest members of the Alabama football team.
And in a few years, hopefully all of them will be walking across the stage as they receive their degrees like many student athletes did this past weekend. In all, 30 University of Alabama student athletes received their degrees during the fall semester, including 10 athletes from soccer and 11 from football. Among those 5 that received master's degrees included Mac Jones. Dylan Moses also returned for his senior season and received his degree, along with Najee Harris and 8 others from football. Crimson Tide's newest alumni joined the 100 who earned diplomas last spring and the 23 who graduated in the summer to boost Alabama's 2020 total to 153.
Tide TV This Week, presented by Thompson Tractor, the exclusive provider of Caterpillar heavy equipment and genuine Cat parts for Alabama and Northwest Florida. Visit ThompsonTractor.com for more information. The University of Alabama, where legends are made. Ford, For great offers on F-150, see your local Ford dealer. Proud sponsor of the Crimson Tide.
It's been a perfect season for the #1 ranked Alabama Crimson Tide. And so far, Alabama has closed out the regular season with a 52-3 dominating win over the Arkansas Razorbacks.
Let's take an all-access look back at the Tide's regular season finale. This all-access feature is brought to you by Legacy of Hope.
One last road test in the regular season for the #1 team in America. Alabama taking on Arkansas. They are the best team in America, and they're playing like it.
Reed Bauer on to punt, gets it away as Devontae Smith will look at this one. He'll make the grab at the 17. He'll cut it back across midfield.
Finds an alley right up the center of the kick coverage group for the Razorbacks, and he will not be touched. An Alabama touchdown.
He's so serious, boy.
And the pocket collapses, and down he goes.
And this time it's Will Anderson right up the gut, brings him down as the Tide gets sacks on back-to-back plays.
And the handoff to Harris, easily done. His 21st rushing touchdown of the season.
Wanted to throw, knocked away by Allen. Alabama trying to pick it up, and they do. Crimson Tide football.
Chris Allen gets the strip sack.
I'm supposed to the crib, though.
First and goal after 5. Here's Harris. Blasts up the middle at the goal line. Is he in? Yes. That is an Alabama touchdown.
Hey, yo, we back up, y'all.
So Reed trying to turn the corners. TJ Hammonds, he's got nowhere to go. Lost at least 3 yards. Now he's got a shot down for the front pylon, and they will say it is a completion. Goal to go at the 2-yard line.
Handoff, Robinson bounces left side, pushes forward and in. Touchdown Alabama with 6:43 to go.
Front, the physical nature of their offensive line gets the job done.
Jones has all day. Wide open. Down inside the 5-yard line is Slade Bolden.
Will hand it off to Brian. Cuts right, cuts back left, stretches, gets to the goal line. Touchdown Alabama, Brian Robinson.
When they just play and don't think and just go to the football and trust their instincts, that's when they're at their absolute best. And I think that's what they've done differently over the last 6 weeks.
Single setback Robinson, the handoff to him. Brian stretches forward, pushes forward into the end zone. Touchdown Alabama.
Jefferson, he'll be sacked again by Barmore. He has been unblockable.
The option move right there, loose football. Bama recovered it, and the Crimson Tide will take over.
We on you, man. All my shoulders down. We out here, man.
Handoff and pushing near the first down mark and then losing the football.
Smith loses the football. It's another takeaway for the Alabama defense.
The ball squirted right out of his hands and into those of Jalen Moody.
That's how you step up, boy.
Alabama's defense today, they have made impact plays and taken the ball away. A backwards pass to Burks. It's a trick play looking for a touchdown. Burks with a jump ball to the goal line. Brian Branch is there for the interception and the touchback. A lane into the open field. McClellan looking for the goal line.
Oh, yeah! To the crib!
15, 10, 5, touchdown Alabama, exclamation point.
Nothing but true freshmen making plays for the Tide.
They just have the greatest habits in the history of college football.
There it is, final seconds tick away, and the Tide rolls to a 52-3 victory over the Arkansas Razorbacks.
Tide TV This Week, presented by Thompson Tractor, the exclusive provider of Caterpillar heavy equipment and genuine cat parts for Alabama and Northwest Florida. Visit ThompsonTractor.com for more information. Ford, for great offers on F-150, see your local Ford dealer. Proud sponsor of the Crimson Tide. The University of Alabama, where legends are made.
Welcome back to Tide TV This Week, brought to you by Thompson Tractor. It's championship weekend, and #1 ranked Alabama is back in the SEC championship game in Atlanta.
The Western Division champion, the Crimson Tide, will take on the Eastern Division champs, the Florida Gators, on Saturday night in Atlanta. For a preview of this year's SEC championship, our Christopher England joins us now. Christopher?
to preview the SEC Championship matchup between number 1 Alabama and number 7 Florida. I'm joined by former Crimson Tide offensive lineman and current ESPN analyst Barrett Jones. Hey Barrett, how's it going?
Hey Chris, how we doing, man?
I'm doing well, Barrett, thanks. Now you're an offensive guy. You have to love this matchup. There's 2 Heisman candidates at quarterback and a couple more on the Crimson Tide's offensive roster.
Well, there's no doubt. Look, I've said it all year. You have to be elite on offense this year to win championships, and both of these teams certainly fit the bill. I know Florida's coming off a really tough game at LSU, but they're still a very dynamic offense that can hurt you in a lot of ways. I can't wait to watch this. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Florida has been explosive on offense with Heisman candidate Kyle Trask at quarterback and All-SEC tight end Kyle Pitts among others. Now the Alabama defense is giving up just over 16 points a game, while the Gators are averaging scoring over 41. How do you see this matchup between the Alabama defense and Florida offense playing out?
Well, we're going to find out if Alabama defense has really gotten better. You know, that's been the narrative over the last few months, is that they've really improved a lot. Obviously, the low point was Ole Miss, where they gave up a ton of points, and they went fast, didn't look lined up. And over the last 2 months, they've been so much better defensively. But they've also played some offenses that probably weren't quite as elite as Ole Miss and obviously as Florida. So we'll see if they've gotten better. I think they have. I think they've gotten much better. And the communication of the back end is a part that they've really excelled in. Florida's offensive line, they're kind of an anomaly. They haven't run the ball well at all this year, but they've been pretty good in pass protection. And Kyle Trask does a good job of knowing where the pressure is coming from and getting the ball to his feet quickly when he needs to. But he's not very mobile. And so if they can get some pressure on him, I think that will certainly make things easier on the back end. Guys like Will Anderson, to get pressure on him, Chris Allen, those kind of guys who have really improved over these past few weeks.
Defensively, Florida is allowing just over 26 points per game, but they just gave up 37 to LSU in a loss. Can this Gator defense slow down the Alabama offense just enough to keep pace, or just like all season with the Tide, just keep rolling?
Well, slow down, I think, is a much better question than stop. I don't think anyone can stop this offense in the entire country. The 35-plus point streak is now up to like 23 or 24 games. It's ridiculous how many points Alabama's been scoring offensively, really over the last few seasons, especially this season. And the other unit is just so good. They have a great O-line and a great wide receiver, great running back. Jaleel Billingsley and tight ends kind of emerged as a real pass-catching threat. So, look, they're not going to stop Alabama, certainly. I think Alabama will score 40-plus points in this game. The question, like you said, is can they get enough stops? I think it's going to take some turnovers.
All right, last question, Barrett. Will the Heisman Trophy be won in this game in Atlanta on Saturday?
It's a great question. I think Kyle Trask, he certainly got hurt a little bit last week in that loss. I think it will be. I think it will be. When these guys comes out and plays really dominantly, then, yeah, I think that guy will follow him in the Heisman. I will say one thing. I think that there is a dark horse, which is crazy calling this guy a dark horse, but Trevor Lawrence is still out there lurking. He comes out and plays really, really well in a primetime game against Notre Dame, and I think he's still got an outside shot. But I do think if one of these guys plays really well in this game, then that will certainly give them the driver's seat for the Heisman Trophy.
Well, thank you for breaking down the SEC Championship game for us, Barrett. Hope you have a great weekend. Roll Tide.
Hey, Roll Tide.
Kickoff is scheduled for 7:10 Central Time in Atlanta at Mercedes-Benz Stadium on Saturday. The game will be carried live on CBS. Stay with us. We'll have our NFL Players of the Week and more coming up next on Tide TV This Week.
Welcome back. Now let's take a look at our Crimson Tide in the NFL Players of the Week, brought to you by BBVA.
This week we go with a veteran and a rookie.
In his first start at quarterback for the Philadelphia Eagles, Jalen Hurts led the Eagles to an upset win over the then 10-2 New Orleans Saints. Hurts led the Eagles offense with 167 passing yards, also 1 touchdown through the air and on the ground. Also, Hurts added an impressive 108 yards rushing on 18 carries.
And Derrick Henry just keeps on keeping on. Another big game from King Henry as he rushed 26 times for 215 yards and 2 touchdowns. That's 8.3 yards per carry, Roger. That's his second 200-plus yard rushing game of the season. He leads the NFL in rushing with 1,532 yards, and he's also tied for the NFL lead with 14 rushing touchdowns.
Now going from the turf to the hardwood, the Alabama men's basketball team had an exciting game on Tuesday inside Coleman Coliseum. Alabama never led in the first half, with Furman holding a 10-point lead at half, but it was a 47-37 game at the break. The Paladins led by as many as 11 points in the second half before the Tide began their comeback. With just over 8 minutes remaining, the Crimson Tide used a 12-4 run to pull within one at 74-73. Then with the score tied at 76, only 1:18 left to go. The Crimson Tide took the lead, first lead of the game, on this three-pointer by James Rojas, one assist by Herb Jones, and the Crimson Tide made it 79-76. Alabama knocked down 5 of its last 6 field goals while holding the Paladins to just 1 of their last 10 in the victory.
Alabama led by as many as 5 as the Tide hung on for the comeback win, 83-80. Alabama dominated the paint with 42 points and out-rebounded the Paladins 48-27. Herbert Jones led the Tide with a double-double, 18 points and 12 rebounds to go along with 4 assists and 2 blocks. The win improves NATO's squad to 4-2 on the year.
The Alabama women's basketball team was in action this past Sunday as the Tide took on Mercer in Macon, Georgia. Alabama started the game with a huge first quarter as the Crimson Tide led 23-7 after the first 10 minutes of play. The Tide continued their domination throughout the game, leading by as many as 25 as Alabama rolled big on the road 78-61 over the Mercer Bears. Arai Copeland led the Crimson Tide as she tied her career high with 26 points.
The Crimson Tide kept their hot start rolling against Nicholls State on Wednesday night. The Tide led 27-6 after the first period and led by as many as 42 as Bama cruised to an 86-46 win over the Colonels. The Tide connected on a season-high 13 three-pointers. Alabama forced 28 Nicholls turnovers and turned that into 36 points, while the Crimson Tide's bench was also huge, contributing 40 points and 12 rebounds.
Jasmine Walker scored a game-high 21 points with 11 rebounds for what is her third double-double of the season. That led to Walker becoming just the 30th member of the Alabama women's basketball program to score 1,000 career points. Congratulations to 40, Jasmine Walker.
With the win, the Tide improves to 6-0 on the year. Stay with us. We'll have our plays and players of the week coming up next.
Devontae Smith will look at this one. He'll make the grab at the 17. He'll cut it back across midfield. Across the midfield stripe, it's a foot race, and I'll always put my money on him. Devontae Smith to the house. Touchdown, Alabama, and the Tide leads it 9-3. Runs left side. Foot race, again, Bama will win it. McClellan, 15, 10, 5, touchdown, Alabama. Exclamation point, 20 to go. Herb down the lane, step through, throws it out, 3, Rojas, boom!
What a play by Herb Jones. Got the ball inside, kicked it out to Rojas, who has been huge in this game.
With 1:07 to go, has its first lead of the night.
Welcome back. Those were our ATI Plays of the Week. Now let's take a look at our Players of the Week, brought to you by Payless Drugs. Another week and another Player of the Week honor for Devontae Smith. Man, it's every week with him. Normally, he's scoring multiple touchdowns through the air. This week, it was on the ground in the form of an 80-yard punt return for touchdown. It was Smith's first ever punt return for a touchdown, and this just proves Smitty really can do it all. The only thing left is maybe a touchdown pass on a trick play. I don't know, Roger. Do you think Coach Saban would ever try that?
You never know, Kira. I do know that Arai Copeland did have a career night in the win over Mercer on Sunday. The Georgia native tied her career high with 26 points. Copeland was an impressive 9 of 10 from the floor and also 8 of 9 from the free throw line. She also added 6 rebounds and a steal in the win over the Bears.
Those are our Payless Drugs Players of the Week.
Thanks for watching another episode of Tide TV This Week. Hope you have a great week, everyone.
See you next week. Roll Tide.
Roll Tide.
This has been a presentation from Learfield IMG College.